What's good, y'all? And welcome back to another preseason preview video. In today's video, we're going over the Dallas Mavericks. In case this is your first preseason preview video of mine that you're seeing, basically what I do is look over the offseason, give a little recap there, and then try to see into the future and see what we can expect in this upcoming season. I'm dropping videos on all 30 NBA teams, and I'm almost finished, so make sure you check out the channel for the ones I already uploaded, and then make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on the ones coming out going forward. But let's just get right to it and talk about the Dallas Mavericks. Last year was a very interesting year for the Mavericks, to say the least. Obviously, when you look at it just on the court wise, it was pretty underwhelming. They were the 10th seed out west, going 39-43. They made the play-in tournament. They won their first game, lost their second game, and did not make the playoffs. That's kind of the backdrop for the Mavericks last season, though, because of course they had one of the biggest, if not the absolute biggest shocker of a trade. Mid-season, they traded away Luka Doncic right after bringing them to the finals. If you ask Nico Harrison, though, everything's going to plan, and now we finally get to see the first full season of this new era in Dallas. And that leads me right into the offseason for the Mavericks. Before I talk about the guys that they are actually bringing in, I do want to highlight some of their key losses. And honestly, they didn't lose too many players, probably because they made a lot of their moves during the season last year. But coming this offseason, they did lose Spencer Dinwiddie. He signed a new deal in free agency with the Charlotte Hornets. And Spence was pretty solid last year for the Mavericks as their backup point guard, being a ball handler, being a shot creator, a playmaker at times, especially with the injuries and the trade with Luka and then Kyrie later on. Having a veteran guard like Spence was really important for the Mavericks. He was also the team leader in games played last year, played almost 80 games. It does suck to see him go, especially considering he was on that finals appearance run that I mentioned from a few years ago. I'm sure that Dallas has a lot of love for him. We'll get to it in a second, but the Mavericks did replace Spencer Dinwiddie with another guard that can give similar, if not a little bit more production than him, so I don't think it's too big of a loss for the Mavericks. And then their other notable loss this offseason was Olivier Maxence Prosper. The Mavericks actually waived him in order to get a little bit more roster space, and he was picked up on a two-way contract by the Memphis Grizzlies. And Omax never really became anything concrete in the NBA. He was a first-round pick just a few years ago in 2023, and when he came to Dallas, he never had that solidified role ever. Last year, he played a decent amount of games with all of the injuries they had, but still never became anything, again, concrete in the NBA. He still is super young, only like 22 or 23 years old, and that's obviously why a team like Memphis took a swing on him, brought him in on a two-way contract. But again, Dallas is looking to compete and be a winning team, so to cut ties with one of your younger guys in order to, fill out your roster for things that make you feel like you're competing better, I can't really fault them too much. I don't think that it's too big of a deal that he got waived, especially because they just got a younger, more talented, and higher ceiling player at Omax's position. And I guess we might as well get right into it and talk about the additions. Of course, I'm talking about Cooper Flagg, the number 1 overall draft pick. The Mavs, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, they made the play-in tournament. They were 1 win away from making the playoffs. They didn't. They were in the lottery, jumped all the way up to the number 1 overall pick, and got one of the most exciting and talked about prospects since Victor Wembanyama. To keep it short, Cooper Flagg can basically do whatever you need him to do on the basketball court, and that is why he is so hyped up, because I feel like he can come in and be on a team like the Mavericks and be super competitive and be one of their main contributors to a winning team, but also give it, 3 or 4 years time, he could be one of the best players in the league. He's got that high ceiling and that high floor, which makes him such an intriguing prospect. He's 6'9" with a 7-foot wingspan, super athletic, moves his body fluidly, can shoot the ball, create his own shot, get to his mid-range, dunk on you in transition, rebound the ball, play make a little bit, defend. Like, I'm running through all of these things, but these are all legitimate skills that he has. Where I think he'll be most impactful early on will be defensively. Like I mentioned, his 6'9" frame with his 7-foot wingspan and athleticism allows him to guard 1 through 4 pretty much. I do think that, especially early on in his career, he might not be strong enough to fully take on those like 5-man matchups. But again, 1 through 4 he could do. He's got the quickness to stick on the perimeter. He's got the size and length to disrupt people that are a little bit bigger on the wing. Also, as an off-ball defender, he's super active, whether it's coming down for a weak side block or jumping in the passing lanes and getting out in transition. He's always looking to make plays defensively. And then offensively, I think he's going to be able to get a lot of mismatches and just take advantage of that. Like I mentioned, with his big size, usually if you put someone that is the same size as him, they're too slow to keep up with him. And if you put someone a little bit quicker, they're too small to stop him. So he's just a matchup nightmare. I do think it is pretty interesting, though, that Cooper got drafted to a team like the Mavericks instead of a team like Charlotte or Utah, where, you know, he would be able to go to those teams, get the keys right away, and just kind of do whatever he wants, you know, be the main guy offensively, see what that's kind of like. Here in Dallas, though, they have Anthony Davis, they have Kyrie Irving when he comes back from injury, they have a Klay Thompson and stuff, you know, so he isn't going to be one of the top offensive options right away. So I am interested to see, like, obviously he has those other things like the defense, the rebounding, but I want to see what he looks like offensively without being like the main guy like he was in high school and at Duke. The Mavericks also signed D'Angelo Russell to a new contract in free agency. He signed a 2-year, $13 million deal. That second year is a player option though, so he'll be making about $6.5 million for the next few years. And this is the guy that I talked about to replace Spencer Dinwiddie's production. Obviously, when you bring in a guy like D'Angelo Russell, it makes Spencer Dinwiddie a little less needed as a ball handler, shot creator, you know, things that they were looking for Spencer to do. D'Angelo Russell can do all of that as well. I do think that D'Lo is a little bit better of a three-point shooter as well. I know he's pretty streaky, but overall, I would take D'Lo over Spence as a three-point shooter, as a playmaker. So I do think that just overall, D'Angelo Russell is like a souped-up Spencer Dinwiddie. And I especially like this signing because D'Lo is a guy that is able to start while Kyrie Irving is injured. It wasn't too long ago he was starting on the Lakers and making deep playoff runs. You know, so I like that he could do that. And then when Kyrie eventually does come back and is fully healthy, he'll be able to just come off the bench and still do a lot of that productive offensive things that he has. And then before we move on, even though they're not technically additions, the Mavericks did re-sign some of their own free agents. First off, they re-signed Kyrie Irving to a 3-year, $119 million contract. That last year on that contract is also a player option, so he'll be averaging about $40 million a year. And then they also signed Dante Exum to a 1-year veteran minimum contract. And now that we recap the offseason, let's take a look at a potential rotation we could be seeing from the Dallas Mavericks. In their starting lineup, we have D'Angelo Russell, Klay Thompson, Cooper Flagg, Anthony Davis, and Derek Lively. And then off the bench, we have Jaden Hardy, Max Christie, Najee Marshall, PJ Washington, and Daniel Gafford. I think it's safe to say that the Mavericks have the best front court in the entire NBA. That starting front court of Cooper Flagg, Anthony Davis, and Derek Lively, super talented, super long, you know, and then it doesn't stop there because off the bench they have guys like Najee Marshall, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford kind of going along with that too. Like, they have just overall a super huge team. Aside from D'Lo and Jaden Hardy as their point guards, everyone on this roster, or in this rotation rather, is 6'5" or taller. You have Klay Thompson at 6'5", Max Christie at 6'6", and then everyone else 6'7" and up. You have almost 3 7-footers. I know Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively are like 6'10", 6'11", but, you know, if you add them as 7-footers with a true 7-footer of Anthony Davis, you know, Cooper Flagg at 6'9", running the 3, like, they just have length and size absolutely everywhere. And that plays into the plan of Nico Harrison. I know he has that quote about defense wins championships, and, you know, it's like I mentioned, going to plan. I think he got bailed out by the Cooper Flagg pick, but that's neither here nor there. His plan of building an elite defensive team is definitely working, because when I look at this Dallas Mavericks team, they are going to be super disruptive. I've already mentioned the length, but then just the pure defensive-oriented players that they have and positive defenders that they have, it's literally limitless. I've mentioned Anthony Davis, who is one of the best defenders in the entire NBA as a rim protector, but then he's running their 4 most of the time. You know, at the 5, he's going to be paired with another elite shot blocker of Derek Lively or Daniel Gafford. Both of those guys, super athletic, super good instincts. Like, they can, again, block any shots at the rim. I've mentioned Cooper Flagg being a plus shot blocker as well. But then the length they also have on the perimeter of a Cooper Flagg, he can kind of do both. Then Najee Marshall and PJ Washington having those strong bodies with the length and the foot speed to be able to guard those big wings. Like, again, I'm super excited to see what this team looks like defensively altogether. I will say, if they have any defensive weakness, it's definitely their guard position, because like I mentioned, they have like D'Lo and Jaden Hardy, who are their smallest players on the court. I don't look at either of those guys to really be a positive defender or anything. And then they have guys like Max Christie, who definitely is a solid defender. Athletically, he's there and he gives effort with his length. Klay Thompson just isn't what he once was. You know, he's still a smart defender and tries, but just athletically, he can't move side to side as good as he has. So I do think that certain matchups with, you know, really super powered backcourts can give them a little bit of trouble. But, you know, if someone forces a miss, they have the size to clean the glass, you know, lock down the paint, and still make it super difficult. So I definitely think that this team is geared more as a defensive-oriented team. But offensively, I do think that they are still talented. They're going to be playing a lot through Anthony Davis, of course. Especially while Kyrie Irving is out, I do think that their ball handling overall could struggle a little bit. But with D'Lo and Jaden Hardy, and then even Max Christie can handle the ball a little bit, maybe they will give some ball handling opportunities to Cooper Flagg as well in his rookie season. I think that they have enough to kind of coast by that. I do just think that overall they will be hard to guard with their size, and then also they have that size without giving up too much spacing or three-point shooting. You know, Anthony Davis will shoot threes. He doesn't necessarily hit them too often, but he's able to kind of pull the four-man out of the paint a little bit when they're running those double big lineups. And then, of course, they have guys like Klay Thompson, Jaden Hardy, PJ Washington's coming off a great shooting season. Max Christie will shoot a lot. D'Lo, you know, they have enough of shooters around, and I do think that between their shooting and their size, they will still be a tough cover for most teams, even if they don't have like crazy perimeter creation. Before we move on, I do want to mention some notable reserves for the Dallas Mavericks. First up is the obvious one, Kyrie Irving. He's still on the roster, but since he tore his ACL you know, late in the season last year, I forget exactly which month it was, but it was late. He even has said himself that it's not 100% confirmed he comes back this season. We hope so. Like, as a basketball fan, a Kyrie fan, I really hope that Kyrie comes back soon. But there is a realistic shot that we don't see him for another 365 days, and he's not ready till next season. And since Kyrie is hurt, I've already mentioned a few times now the ball handling question marks. If there are some real issues with the ball handling and they need to switch some things up, I could see guys like Dante Exum or even Brandon Williams getting a shot at that backup point guard spot. I mentioned that Omax was waived to open up roster spots. He was waived actually to guarantee that they sign back Dante Exum. So obviously the Mavericks and Jason Kidd really value what he does as a bigger point guard. And then Brandon Williams, I thought last year just had a overall pretty solid season. And I could definitely see him taking some minutes away from Jaden Hardy, depending on who's playing better. Caleb Martin is also a guy I want to shout out to. He was really close to making this rotation. I just couldn't find the spot for him. He's been pretty much hurt since he's got to the Mavericks, it feels like. So hopefully he's fully healthy coming into this season. I definitely think as a 3-and-D wing, he can give value to this team. And then last but not least, we have Dwight Powell, who's the longest tenured Maverick at this point by a very wide margin. Dwight Powell at this point is mainly a locker room guy, but is also really solid as your third or fourth string center, and just in case there's an injury to one of your bigs, he's able to slide in and just give some energy. So shout out to him. And now it's time for my ceiling, floor, and expectations for the Dallas Mavericks. Starting off with their ceiling, I can see them being as high as the 6th seed. I think there is a real possibility that the Mavericks have a top 5, maybe even top 3 defense this year. When you have a defense anchored by Anthony Davis as well as another big, while having that much length on the perimeter and positive defenders, like, I really think that they're going to be amazing defensively. And even though I am a little bit more skeptical on their offense, I think just talent alone with Anthony Davis and Cooper Flagg and some of these other pieces they could have a solid enough offense with their elite defense to keep them afloat and be one of the better teams in the Western Conference. When it comes to their playoff ceiling, though, I don't know if they would really go too far. Like I mentioned, it's not even guaranteed that Kyrie comes back this season, and if he does, he hasn't played basketball in a while by the time he comes back, so I don't know if I could really rely on their offense enough to have a deep playoff push. So at their playoff ceiling, I have them as a tough first-round exit. When you look at their floor, I can see them being as low as the 12th seed and in the lottery. I've already mentioned that I'm a little bit skeptical on their offense, and God forbid Anthony Davis misses an extended period of time, then their offense falls off a cliff even further. And since there are so many talented Western Conference teams, I think it takes more than just an elite defense to solidify, make the playoffs. So for that reason, they have their floor at the 12th seed and in the lottery. But when you talk about my expectations, I expect them to be in the play-in tournament. I was going back and forth between the 8th seed and the 9th seed, and I know you could be saying to yourself, like, that's not that big of a deal, it's one spot. But in the play-in tournament, being the 8th versus being the 9th is super important because that determines if you have to win one game or win 2 games to make the playoffs. I ended up going with the 9th seed though, and in this situation, I don't think that they would be able to win both of those play-in tournament games. We saw just last season, it's incredibly difficult to win both. They were pretty hot against Sacramento and then cooled right off versus the Grizzlies. So, I don't think that they would make the playoffs. I'm expecting them to be play-in losers. What do you guys think though? Let me know in the comments below where you think the Dallas Mavericks are going to end in this year's standings and how far will they make it in the postseason. I'm interested to see what you guys think. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave it a like, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. In the description, there's links to all my social medias, so make sure you follow me on all those to keep up to date with me. Catch ya.